3, 2, 1.
My name is Nick. I'm a full-time trader and entrepreneur. We put out tons of stuff for free for traders. These are real trades. This is real money. I'm putting my money on the line. This is going to be a live trading video. Here, locking in over $1,000 on this trade.
Wow, I'd love to get in on this.
Technical insights that really look good to me.
Here we go. We're live. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another stream here on the channel. Thank you very much for being here. We got a good number of people already in the chat here on a Tuesday. Sorry I missed yesterday for those of you guys who are not in the US. Yesterday was a bank holiday, I guess bank holiday, or just a holiday in general for us in the United States, 4th of July. It's a big day for us Americans. So we were out of the office, and so we didn't have any shows yesterday. So sorry if you missed yesterday. We'll be resuming like normal today. We got shows for the rest of the week. Lots of exciting stuff to go talk about today. We've got my show here at 9, and then at 10 we have Ivan coming on, and then at 2 we have Neve coming on. So we got lots of different shows planned for today. So thank you for being here. Welcome back to the stream. So we got a lot of people in the chat. What's up, Dave? What's up, Keegan, Dade, Mark, Marvin, Hector, Sean, everybody in the chat. Sunny, good to see you guys. Thank you for being here. Cool. Happy Tuesday. There's a lot of stuff going on. We got to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get right into the action here today. We've got gold running up. We've got the dollar running up, and we've got Aussie and New Zealand all doing well. So we got some stuff to talk about, to break down, and to look for some trade setups and ideas here on today's stream. So let's get right into it. Before I go too far, let me pull up the website. I want to show you guys this. So I'm going to refresh the page. This is the currency heat map. You guys can use this anytime you want for free on the website, by the way. You just head over to a1trading.com, and you can just quickly go over to the currency heat map section. So if you go to the front page, if you just search up a1trading.com, got our articles here and stuff that we're focused on, but also you can just go over to the currency heat map if you are interested in this and check it out. So this gives us a quick look at what's going on with the different currencies, the major currencies versus the major currencies as well, basically identifying where the strength, where the weakness is with the different currencies themselves. So what you can see here is that if we're looking at New Zealand today, New Zealand is very strong, especially against things like the euro and things like the Swiss franc and the CAD. We've got the New Zealand doing quite well. And I'm going to talk about why in just a moment. The Aussie is also kind of moving up in sympathy with the New Zealand dollar. And then you've got the CAD sort of weakening today. So you've got some interesting stuff going on today. The euro also looks pretty weak today. But I wanted to talk about this movement here. You've got the Aussie and the New Zealand, big movers today. And I'm going to talk about that right now. So the reason behind that is that the Aussie actually, or the Australian Central Bank, they discussed their interest rate outlook, and they held rates at where they're currently looking, but they're discussing the concept of tapering, which is a popular concept right now among central banks. Everyone is sort of slowing down on the stimulus. Obviously, we had a crazy year in 2020, lots of slowdown and concerns around the pandemic, and so there was a ton of money printing and stimulus to sort of keep everything afloat. Now what we see is central banks pulling back on that. We saw Canada lead the way with that, with discussing tapering and even rate hikes soonest, right? We saw they were kind of the forefront of that, but now we're seeing other central banks fall in line with the Fed recently, and the Australian bank here coming in hot with that as well. The New Zealand bank also discussing similar things and talking about aggressive rate hikes, which we see causing New Zealand to be quite strong today. I am bullish on the New Zealand dollar myself, so I was happy to see this, and looking for more opportunities to try and trade the New Zealand. So there's a little bit of a top-down fundamentals for you today, some things to think about. We also see gold spiking incredibly strong today, so we are going to discuss that as well. I think Frank has a trade inside of our private Discord that he took on gold, so maybe we'll pull that up and see what's going on there. With that said, we'll head over to the charts here and see what's going on. So we also have the dollar moving stronger, which is another interesting thing that we got to discuss. So you've got the dollar moving stronger, you've got gold rising. It's a crazy day in the market. So we've got a lot of stuff to get into. So let's pull up some charts and see if we can figure this stuff out. Okay, before I go too far, I do want to remind you guys, if you're enjoying the streams, if you're new here, if you want this stuff more often for free, you can get it anytime by subscribing to my YouTube channel. We also have another YouTube channel. We have two. There's Trader Nick, obviously mine, and then we have A1 Trading, which is our company one, where we have lots of different analysts and speakers coming on and sharing free resources for traders. So make sure to subscribe to both and come back here to this show, 9 a.m. Monday through Friday, Eastern time. So feel free to come and join us in the future. So taking a look at the dollar's breaking out here this morning in the New York session. You've got the dollar rallying hard off of these lows. Lots of strength coming in hot here off of the bottom. The DXY making its move off of yesterday. Well, I guess what is that? The 5th of July's lows there. So really making a move there to the upside. And the question is this going to rally right back to the top? I would argue that most likely it is due for a retest of the high and continuation. So we got a nice little pullback here. So you had the break, right? The Fed came out strong with all the news about rate hikes and sort of just a different hawkish tone from the Fed. Then we had this consolidation, price broke out higher, and now we had unemployment numbers come out, which sort of temporarily halted the dollar. But now we're seeing on this Tuesday, start of the week here, real strong rally for the dollar. So one thing I will say about watching the dollar going into this week is that I think that a natural place would be to come back to retest the highs, but maybe even watching for a breakout beyond that level. So for example, let's say you're looking at this one, you mark in this level of resistance, you say, okay, that's where supply seems to be. Last time we were up there, we found a lot of sellers, but then we break that going into this week. That could be a big signal to traders out there who are watching the dollar, because let's say you get up to this point and then there's a little profit taking, but then we see a strong rally above that level. The reason that that is super important is because that could show an excess or a growing demand for the DXY or the dollar itself, right? And so that could be a nice clue to look for higher prices. You might say, well, Nick, doesn't that seem like chasing? The idea here is that, yes, you're sort of, in my opinion, I'm fine with buying on the way up because this thing is showing a lot of demand. And another key tip here is that although, yes, you would be buying close to the high, the idea is you're looking for a risk to reward that makes sense. So for example, you see a breakout, you get a retest, sort of something like this. And then, I'm looking for scenarios in which I can risk small, right? Maybe I risk something around this zone, maybe risk a little bit there for the potential for prices to rally stronger. Again, the trend here is your friend in my view, so you got a lot of strength to the upside. So I will be looking for some bullish setups on the dollar. Should we get some this week, that would be great. But let's go look at some of the individual crosses and see what we can do here. One that comes to mind, of course, would be the New Zealand dollar today. The New Zealand, like I mentioned just a minute ago, we talked about the fact that the Central Bank of New Zealand has talked about raising rates early in 2022, which could be, putting them at the front of the line in terms of rate hikes, which is always a very bullish thing, remember, for currency. So we are looking at NZD, USD here on the 4-hour chart. And what we can kind of see is that we had a very strong rally, right? We found a lot of demand here off of the lows, a little bit of consolidation there, and then bam, we got the run up strong there on today's price action. Now we're seeing a little bit of give back because remember, we have New Zealand strong, but we also have the dollar coming in strong today as well. So we could definitely talk about some of the other crosses as well with the New Zealand. But I wanted to point out that you did have, you had the low here formed, and then you had a higher low formed. Now testing this resistance point, and this is a similar thing I want to talk about. So again, off of the back of that news from New Zealand, right? The rate hikes inbound and the tapering and all that stuff going on, right? This could be an interesting spot to watch for breakouts. Let's say you get something like this. You get a strong rally past resistance, and then you get something like this. Again, another setup in which I can see myself looking for long positions. You got the higher low. You got some demand coming into this chart and looking for higher prices at a break and retest sort of standpoint. Looks like a top sort of idea for me right now with the New Zealand dollar. You sort of had this pattern as well. So seeing this break to the upside looks very good, very promising for bulls here. Should see or should we see a break above resistance there? New Zealand dollar may be a buy for me, maybe something that I'm looking. Please remember, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you, oh, go buy that just because I think it's bullish. Please remember, I can be wrong. I'm wrong quite often. So don't just take what I say as fact. Please always do your research, due diligence, etc. Be smart. If you're going to be trading the markets, is. You should really take the time to know what you're doing and do the research before making any decisions. So New Zealand dollar, that's one that's on my radar. Again, I'm not super keen on the New Zealand dollar itself. There are some other ones that I find more interesting, more crosses, because the dollar I'm sort of bullish on, and the New Zealand I'm also bullish on. But again, with that DXY just rallying here real strong today, looking for opportunities on both the US dollar and the New Zealand dollar for long side action personally. So what else can we get into? So, of course, we will be discussing gold, but I'm going to give it a minute here. We're still going to wait until people get into the stream. Usually by the end of the stream, we get up to 600 or 700 people. So I like to just wait a little bit before we get to gold, because everybody seems to want to look at gold. So for my friends who do want to look at gold, like Jack, please be patient, Jack. We will get there. I will definitely get there. Ivan says, don't worry, it will be covered. We will definitely be covering as much as we can. Remember, by the way, our friend Ivan will be coming on in, 50 minutes or so on the second channel. So don't forget to tune in on our second channel, A1 Trading, for Ivan's show today, because I'm sure he has some good stuff to discuss as well. Let's go into some of the majors. We'll take a look at Euro USD. This is EUR USD. For the new traders out there, this is the most traded currency pair because you've got the Euro, which is a master, ginormous, huge economy. And then you've got the US, which of course is the same. Those two things clashing in one currency pair causes a lot of trading volume every single day on the Euro USD, Monday through Monday, right? Every single day, even on weekends, this thing is always being transacted with because, again, there's always a demand for euros and always a demand for dollars. So here we go. We're taking a look at Euro USD. This thing looks pretty bearish, meaning that people are selling the euro right now in favor of the US dollar. We do see price headed towards the lows here, it seems like. And with that dollar strength today, it does seem like we could be headed back down to this point. We are looking at the 4-hour chart, which means that each one of these candles is 4 hours of trading action. So let's take a look a little bit top down first. We'll change the chart time frame to 1 day. So each one of these is 1 day of price action. So you can see recently the euro has taken on some serious water. And the question is, will the boat keep sinking, or are we going to find some way to stop the bleeding out here? It seems like euro dollar is really struggling to hold any sort of lows. And so for me right now, Euro USD is mostly bearish. I think a natural place for the euro dollar to head would be that move that we talked about last week, which is 1.175, the recent low of this retracement that we saw back in April. Now, again, during this time, there was a lot of concerns around inflation. But as soon as the Fed started discussing, hey, we're looking to aggressively taper and potentially raise rates, it changed, right? The euro went out of favor real quick. And you can see the price action that took, months to really materialize. You had, 56 days. So almost 2 months of price action to the upside there to make those gains. You can actually see that once things got going right around here, it only took a matter of days, 16 days to really erase most of those gains. So again, the Euro USD, something I am bearish on currently. Again, remember, whenever we are taking a currency pair, we are taking one currency versus another. We're taking the euro versus the US dollar and trying to make a decision as to where we think this thing has potential to go. Again, right now, the trend seems to be in favor of the bears. I am interested in shorting the Euro USD, but I wouldn't be doing it right at the lows. So for me, what that means is, you had some opportunities here. Obviously, hindsight, we know what's happening, but what's already happened. But the idea here is going forward, should we see retracements, I might be interested in picking up some shorts on the euro against the dollar in favor of an overall push to the downside, down to, like I said, my target of 1.175. And again, remember, these are theories, these are opinions, these are not guarantees that this is going to happen. But as a trader, it's not about being right all the time. I've said this many times on my stream. The idea is not being 100% accurate. The idea is being as accurate as possible, but really making it count when you are correct. Right? So you're holding on to your winners, letting things run, making things, making the most out of the good and trying to minimize the losses. For example, let's say that I wait for Euro USD to retest this area. And let's say scenario one is that I am wrong, right? So I enter a sell trade, meaning I short the euro, buy the dollar. And let's say I sell at this level and I put a stop just above structure. And let's say that on scenario one, we'll do scenario one in blue, So scenario one is price just keeps going and decides to rally above. It just keeps going to the upside and the euro dollar gets a lot of strength for whatever reason. Maybe Europe looks really strong or concerns about the dollar rise again, etc. In this case, in scenario number one, I lose small, right? I take a quick loss, I'm out of the trade, and I just, I take it quickly, right? I basically cut off the loss very quickly. On the flip side, let's say that Euro USD at this level holds beautifully. We see sellers come in strong yet again and push us down to my target of 1.175. Now you're talking about a big win, right? And I hold it the whole way, right? I don't close it out. I hold on to this trade for dear life. I'm like hugging it. The wind's in my sail, right? I'm dangling on for dear life here. And I hold it all the way down to 1.175. Well, in scenario number two, let's analyze what happened, right? In situation number one, we took a very small loss. In situation number two, you're talking about a great big win, and all we did was hold on to a winner. That's my style of trading. That's how I like to approach things, so that if I'm wrong quickly. And if I'm right, I let it run and I try and, like I said, dangle on for dear life. It doesn't work out perfectly all the time. This is trading. Unfortunately, it is a difficult thing to do, and most people are going to not do very well at it. Unfortunately, that's just the truth of the matter. But finding ways to minimize your losses and maximize your wins, to me, is key in actually, making any money in this stuff. So for me, again, goal is to look for opportunity to sell on a pullback, looking for more downside for the euro dollar myself. Again, that is just my view on it. You may agree, you may disagree. And the cool thing is that as a trader, we can both make money. Sometimes you might be right this time, maybe I'm right next time. But again, it's about letting those winners play out and cutting off the losers. That's at least the name of the game for me. You might have a different style, and that's cool. Let's take a look at the next one, GBP USD. This one also very interesting today. Look at this massive pin bar coming in today once the dollar came strong. Check this out. Let's look at the lower time frames and see if we can get a little bit more of a picture here on what's going on. So 4-hour chart looks pretty bearish here for the pound dollar. Let me remove everything. We'll start fresh. So the pound dollar has been selling off pretty strong. We had some dovish remarks from the Bank of England. We also saw, of course, the Fed coming in strong. So those two things combined, you're talking about one central bank that is dovish and one that is hawkish. Those are just terms that are basically saying one is looking to reduce stimulus and potentially raise rates, and the other is not there yet, right? With those two things combined, you have one that is favored over the other right now, that being the US dollar. Can that change? Absolutely. We see change all the time, and that's why we do these live streams. I cover what I'm looking at and what's going on in the world so that you can hopefully get some sort of insight on that. Again, shout out to myself. If you're newer to my streams, make sure to subscribe down below. Come back and watch completely for free anytime you want. But again, that's what we do here. We cover the markets, we cover what's going on, and try and give you guys a little bit of insight to hopefully inform you better for your trading. So when we look at pound dollar, we are forming lower highs. We are seeing sellers come in here consistently pushing price lower. It does look like today we have formed a lower high, and I would not be surprised to see pound dollar head down and maybe even form a lower low here on this trend. I pointed out the other day that on the daily chart, similar to the euro dollar, I think a natural place for price to head would be the lows here down at 1.37. Now, we came pretty close on this spike. You could argue that we already retested these lows. But again, with the dollar policy looking pretty strong, I would not be surprised to see a price retracement all the way down to the deeper parts of this supply, this demand zone, right? You had a double bottom here, beautiful little buyer set up on back in April, and then May we saw the strong rally. But again, we have a little bit different circumstances now. We see a very strong US dollar right now, and I think that a natural place for pound dollar to go would be a move down to 1.37. That, of course, like I said before, is my opinion. So what I'm looking for here on the pound dollar is potential short setups on the lower time frames, pullbacks, etc. I think that maybe you see this level hold here for the day. We'll see. But again, I think that most likely we are due to retest the lows there at 1.37. So on the last move there, we were still what? Just about 30 pips. We missed it by 30 pips or so, 25 to 30 pips on the downside there. But I think that should things continue to form lower lows, we see price hit 1.37. Again, we'll see if that can play out. And there's not the cleanest levels of pullback here, to be honest. You've got this level at 1.4. We never quite made it back up to that level. Then, of course, you've got some higher levels of retracement. Should price make it all the way back up to something like 1.42, somewhere in that area, you may find resistance. But for the most part, I think that, this trade here looks pretty clean, 1.4 maybe. I could see myself looking for possible sell setups if we do retrace further. But for now, it does look like the question is, can we hold that as a lower low, right? And what I mean by that is, of course, each time that price, rallies here, if you're finding a point where you've got sellers coming in and pushing price lower and never making it. It's just a show of supply, right? Every time it tries to come up, sellers are strong enough to push it before it can come back up too high, right? It's a very simplistic idea. It's similar like if we flipped it around and we said, higher lows, you've got stuff like this, right? You've got situations in which demand is coming in each time, but not only is it coming back in, it's coming back in stronger than the time before, right? We can say the flip side about a sell trend where you have sellers coming in and supply is stronger each time. You have sellers who are more willing to step up and short something like the pound dollar here for the time being. So on the flip side, for those of you who are bullish on the pound, should we see something like this where I'm just completely wrong? Those would be scenarios in which maybe from a technical point, we start to see that increase in demand, but that's not quite where we're at right now. So for me, I don't like to sort of assume that that's going to happen until I start to see it. I'm mostly a reactionary trader more so than a predicting trader because it is quite difficult to predict where the markets are going to go. Things change, things, adapt and move around. So for me, it's better to try and just ride trends where they exist than trying to predict where they're going to go or where they're going to turn around, et cetera, like that. I might have a general idea of where I think price could go, but it's not something that I'm going to bet the whole farm on just because I think, hey, we might go down to 1.37. That's just an idea of where price could go should the trend continue, and I'm looking to join that trend so long as it is there. Okay, so let's see what else we can get into. So we talked about the euro dollar and the pound dollar. Let's see if we can take a look at dollar yen today and see what's going on with dollar yen. So this one's confusing because this one is headed lower despite all the bullishness on the US dollar. So kind of a frustrating situation. I took a trade yesterday that ended up stopping me out for a loss. I took a trade here off of the basis of, you had this little pin bar and overall the trend is nice to the upside, but I took a very small loss on this one yesterday, thinking that this level could hold. We did not hold that area, so we've got to sort of recalibrate, and now it does seem like prices come down all the way to the trend line here. There may be some opportunities to look to get long again on the dollar yen, but I am going to wait for that scenario to play out yet again before I try and just jump in here. So what that might look like to me is a lower high, et cetera, maybe looking to get in off of a break and retest somewhere on the lower time frames. But for me, this is still a currency pair that I am bullish on. I think that it is a bargain, has potential to go higher, and a target for me on this one is 112 for the time being. Now, again, a target that I define is very loose. It's not like I absolutely know that that's where price is going to go. That's where I think it will go should the trend continue. A sort of a natural place would be a psychological move to the big number there, 112, right? We talked about psychological levels here many times on the stream, but the main idea is that something where everybody would see that number and make sense, right? 150, 1,000, 100. Those are like big psychological levels. And the currency market, a lot of times it's just big round numbers in general, 110, 111, 112, 113, right? Those are big psychological levels. So a natural place for price to go, should the trend continue, to me makes sense to see 112 get hit. So maybe there's some opportunities to look for long side action here on the dollar yen this week. I will be looking at that. Maybe if we get a bit more of a retracement here, that could be something that comes into play. Of course, 110.6, somewhere around that region. But again, for the most part, I'm looking for price to show some signs of demand before I look to jump in again. So maybe we see something like this where we rally past this point and I look to get in on a break and retest. That could be something that I'm interested in. But again, dollar yen is on my radar. What about pound yen? This is another one that we often cover in the stream. Pound yen here selling off for the most part. GBP, JPY. This has been one that I've been watching for bullish breakouts, but have not quite seen just yet. I did try in the past to catch some of this action. I tried to buy, I think, right around here, but that one did not work out so well. So sort of just waiting for this one to make up its mind. Maybe we see this break out of the trend line there. We start to see some signs of higher lows. Again, the overall trend here on the higher time frames is to the upside. So mostly looking for this counter trend here to fail. If that fails, then I will be looking for long side action on the pound yen. But again, that one's sort of on the sidelines for the time being. I would like to pull up for just a second the retail Forex sentiment on our website. Again, feel free to use this anytime you want on the site. Head over to a1trading.com and you can look at what retail traders are generally thinking about a currency pair. So right now we see pound yen heavily on the short side. 66% of traders think that it is headed lower, while 33% think it is headed higher. So what does that mean? How does that actually come out to be an idea or a trade setup? Well, retail sentiment by itself doesn't tell me like what I'm going to do. It just tells me a general idea of what the crowd thinks. And what we know about the crowd is that the crowd mostly loses money, right? If we know that the retail crowd spends most of its time losing money in the markets, we probably don't want to pile into the same trades that they are taking, right? Now, institutional traders are a little bit different. When you're talking about big hedge funds and very educated, individuals who have put in a lot of work and research into this stuff, that's a different story. Being with them on the trade might actually be a little bit more favorable. But being with the crowd of people who are like amateur retail hobbyist traders, that's less appealing to me. So if I know that 66% of people are short on the pound yen, I would mostly be interested in more on the long side. And this is something that we see reoccurring in our market streams here that we've done. You a lot of times see in a situation like this, you see all the retail traders trying to short this thing, whereas big traders, institutional traders, they're piling into long trades on the pound or shorting the yen, etc. So right now I am looking for this thing to show some signs of demand, in which I would be looking to pick up long positions against retail traders, and mostly going with the trend there. So that's my analysis on pound yen. What is next? So we looked at pound yen, dollar yen. Let's take a quick look at euro yen, EUR JPY here in the chat. We've got some traders who are calling out different things. So shout out to my friends there that want to look at different things. I'm sorry if I don't get to all of them. I will do my best to get to as many as I can. Thank you, Dade, moderator here, putting in that we have already looked at DXY, New Zealand dollar, euro dollar, pound dollar, dollar yen, and pound yen, and now EUR JPY, euro yen. Thank you very much, Dade. And there's an update for my friends who are just getting in here. That's what we've gone over. So if you have any questions on those, feel free to rewind the stream or go back in time, and you can check them out there. So right now, we're going to take a look at euro yen. Euro yen similar to pound yen in the sense that you've got this upward trend. You've got strength coming into this market overall. But recently, we've had a little bit of a trouble here with the counter trend, right? We're seeing lower highs. We're seeing sellers who are prevalent in this market. So euro yen kind of similar to pound yen. You've got a large retail crowd, more interested on the short side during these rallies. Now, it may be getting to a point where it's a little bit more, stretched to the downside. Maybe there's some opportunities to look for long side action. But for me, I've got to start to see signs of demand, signs of price pushing higher before I'm looking to jump into this thing. Because again, this thing could ride right off of a cliff. But I'd like to see, if I'm going to look to get long, I'd like to see some essence of, buyer stepping up and pushing price through levels. So again, there's the daily chart. We are still, trending up overall. The 200-day moving average looks pretty good. And we are testing today the 100-day moving average on the euro yen, which has historically, seems like we held it pretty nicely here. So again, we'll see if price can find demand there at the lows, euro yen that is. So let's pull this one up on the 4-hour chart for a second, and we'll take a look here. So here is the 4-hour view on the euro yen. Testing this area here that we marked, probably not the best area to keep marked, to be honest, though, because we did break that previously. So maybe should price come down to the lows here, maybe there's a little bit of buy side action that could be in favor. But for now, it does seem like we are putting in those lower highs. We are showing signs of sellers that are holding each time. So I would not jump to conclusions on this one. I wouldn't be trying to you know, catch a falling knife, as they say. I'd be more interested personally in looking to see if we can actually start to show signs of demand. Something like this. Maybe this week we see breakouts, retests, something like that, should the euro get stronger. And again, that's sort of the idea for my trading style, is waiting for momentum and strength to pick up. I'd rather be buying into strength and selling into weakness rather than trying to assume where strength is going to pick up, if that makes sense. I'm more of a momentum trader, trend trader, looking for that sort of directional strength to come into play. Right now on the lower time frames, it looks like we may even have some short bias down to 130.2. So let's look at the 1 hour chart here and I'll show you guys this. So if you're looking at euro yen on the day trading side of things, short term, you know, you might have opportunities to look to go short, trying to play your way down to 130. Right, which was that area down here. So if price comes down to 130 on the higher time frames, maybe there's some buy setups. But on the lower time frames, again, we're seeing these lower highs. We're seeing a lot of strength by sellers. So you may see stuff like this week. You may see retests, and if the yen can stay strong and the euro stays weak, you know, you might see that price head right on down to 130, and there might be some lower time frame trade setups for the short sellers out there. In fact, this looks pretty clean for traders who are watching this. In fact, let me just see if this lines up anywhere. Not so good there, but maybe here we could get some action. There's some real lower time frames. Here's a fib drawn from the previous spike top there, at the top of this rally, down to where we see the low of today. So maybe a retest of the 50% or the 38.2 could come into play, could come into like a sell setup for the traders out there who watch the lower time frames, trading the 1 hour, 30 minute, etc. Euro yen, maybe one to keep on your radar if you like the idea of shorting this. Now, I probably wouldn't hold on to a euro yen short trade for too long. This is quite a costly one to short because, again, I've talked about this before, you're talking about a currency, the EUR, which I think is 0% interest, versus JPY, which is negative 0.1%, which what that means is that if you hold money in the Japanese banks for a year, you lose 0.1% of your value on your money. So that's the idea. So usually what that means is that if you've ever heard of swaps, if you've seen swaps on your broker and you're like, what the heck is that? Well, if I could spell right, swaps basically are interest rate deductions or credits to your account. If you're holding something that costs a lot, right? If you're shorting euro and buying yen, if you're buying yen, it doesn't pay very well. In fact, it pays negatively. A flip side could be, for example, let's say there's not a lot of great examples out there. Let's say that we looked at like CAD Swiss, right? You have something that, oh, look at CAD Swiss selling off of a cliff here on the 1 hour. This one offers, you know, positive interest rate versus a very negative interest rate. So again, this is where sometimes interest rates can come into play. If you are buying the CAD, which I'm not actually sure, is it, can someone help me out? What is the interest rate of Canada right now? I'm blanking. Is it 0.25%? Is that right? I think it might be 0.25. Let's just assume it's 0.25. And then if I'm wrong, you can correct me later. And then you have the Swiss franc, which is negative 0.75. The thing here is that if you are buying the CAD and selling the Swiss franc, you're talking about a pretty good swap differential, which, you know, cost you a lot less or even can credit you depending on the broker that you're using. Okay, yeah, AI Night says it is 0.25. Thank you for that. Yeah, so Canada offers 0.25. Swiss franc is negative 0.75. So when you buy this and you sell or short this, you actually collect a positive swap. Now, it's not that much, but it's better than having really expensive swaps on the flip side. Because if you were to short the CAD and buy the Swiss franc, right? If you were to do the flip side, that would cost you quite a bit because you're buying the Swiss franc, which costs you, and then you're shorting the CAD, which also costs you, right? So that's a very negative flip side effect. So again, just something to think about if you've never really heard of swaps or you're confused by them. That is usually what you're talking about when you talk about positive or negative swaps. Okay, guys, I think it is time. XAU USD. We're going to pull up gold here in the chart. Let's get some hashtag gold gangs in the chat. Shout out to all you guys who all you who trade it. I know gold is a very popular one, so I always try and pull it up and make a big deal out of it because everyone seems to love trading gold. Now, gold, my goodness, this thing is just on a massive run to the upside today. So hashtag gold gang for my friends out there who trade gold. As always, I always try and remind you guys, if you're new to gold, if you're new to trading in general, please be careful with this one. It is quite the volatile instrument. It can be a nasty one if you're on the wrong side of a trade. It can be great if you're on the right side. But again, most traders, they get themselves into a lot of trouble trading something like gold because it is quite volatile if you're using a margin account. Okay, so looking at gold here, we've got to talk about what we discussed last week, which is we had this pretty tight range here for gold. So let me draw everything in here, starting fresh this week. So we had, going into this week, we had a lot of resistance up top, and we had, of course, support or demand down at the bottom, right? So price was very stuck in this range. We did float higher towards the end of the week. And then now in this week, we see the strength coming in for gold, which is really interesting to me because you have gold rising higher today, but you also have the DXY rising. So that's very, very confusing. So let's try and see if we can make any reason of that. If you have any idea why both are rising today, drop it in the chat. I'd be curious to see what people are thinking. Gold and euro are moving in opposite directions, which is unusual. Yes, which is quite an interesting concept as well. So the euro dollar and the gold market tend to move sort of in correlation, especially since you're talking about counter crosses to the dollar, the euro and gold. But today, funny enough, we see the DXY or the dollar index rising, and we also see gold rising as well. So a little bit of confusion there. Maybe we'll rely on Ivan today to explain that in the next show. He might do a better job than me. But today, maybe some risk off coming. That is probably a pretty good idea. Maybe we could see something like that. Yeah. How would you take the gold breakout because it never retested? For me, because I trade retests, I would have missed this trade if I was trading gold. So I would not have taken it. And that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to miss out a trade. Like a lot of times people get so upset or they kick themselves because they're like, oh, I'm missing the trade. I don't want to miss out. And then what do? They YOLO into the top of it, right? They go all in at the top of a move. So I wouldn't recommend that personally. So for me, when looking at gold, you might say, well, I missed the trade. How do I get involved? For me, there's only two scenarios. Either I look for a pullback and I get involved on a retest, or I just missed the trade, and both are okay because I'm not going to go buying gold here, right? Although, maybe we see it just rally higher. In the long term, for me, just chasing is a really dangerous habit that does not usually end well. So for me, looking at gold, a price retest of maybe 1800 to 1790, somewhere in that range, maybe I look to get long on gold from there, but I'm not going to rush into it. So again, we had a range breakout this week going into here. We've got the 1 hour chart, lots of strength coming in here in London and even New York session. Question is going to be, if we retest, maybe there's a trade setup. Could we hold that area there at 1800/1795, somewhere in that range? And from there, maybe there's some setups because I think you do get some decent risk reward. It does seem like we have formed a bottom. Let me see, is Frank in a gold trade? Let me go spy on Frank's trades really quick. So let me pull this up. So I'm going to pull up the Discord and see if Frank is in this trade. Yeah, so Frank bought gold. We're going to spy on Frank here really quick. So Frank, you're on blast. Let's see. Frank bought gold at 1796 inside of the group. Gold looks solid at this point at a previous high, going to bet on a break above resistance here and a test above the 1800 mark. Stop loss at 1760, and he just moved to stop loss to 1802 just about 30 minutes ago. Okay, so Frank bought gold at what? 1796. So 1796 is right around here. Nice little breakout catch there by Frank. So he bought, basically, he caught the breakout itself. And there's different styles of trading out there. Like I mentioned, for me, I wait for retests. But if you have a strong conviction fundamentally on something and you're catching the breakout like this, again, I don't think that as long as you have a plan in place and you know what you're doing with it, there's nothing wrong with catching a more aggressive breakout. So it does seem like Frank caught the aggressive breakout right around there. He had a stop loss at 1760, so somewhere around here. So a little bit bigger of a play. As you guys may have remembered, if you've been watching the streams for a while, Frank caught a massive gold trade back here, catching the double bottom here, just a little bit off the lows here, somewhere around 1718, I think was his price. He rode this thing all the way up and then got out somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where, but Frank seems to be the gold trader these days. So I just wanted to see what his trades were all about. So again, he caught the breakout here today, looking pretty good. We'll see if gold can continue, and if it does retest, maybe there's a second chance for bulls who want to try and get on to that train before it goes higher. In terms of resistance and where things could go, let's discuss potential targets here. I think 1850 could come back into play for buyers, especially if gold stays strong. And the thing about gold is that when momentum picks up on gold, it's similar to Bitcoin, right? Everyone talks about Bitcoin now as this like really popular crypto, everybody wants to buy it. Well, it's like a really popular thing that when it comes into favor, it rallies dramatically for like months at a time. Gold is actually similar and has been doing it way longer than Bitcoin ever has. Gold has been around and has been traded for thousands of years. And so, the difference here is that with gold breaking out, maybe we see another impressive run up, or maybe this is just a pullback before a deeper retracement. But either ways, I think a very natural place for price to retest, if this thing does get strong, would be a retest of 1850, right? That resistance there. That could be an interesting point as well in terms of fibs. Let's see if that is anything of interest. That does line up with the 61.8. So for the short sellers out there watching this gold momentum, if you're on the sidelines, if you're saying, well, I'm going to pause on this until further notice, there's two levels that stick out to me. Either we talk about the 38.2, which is right here, like we are literally testing that right now, or we see a 61.8% retracement. So either ways, there's kind of some interest here. So let me show you this. On the 4-hour chart, you can kind of see we did have a strong area here previously, in fact, 2 times. So this is really, really interesting for gold sellers and for gold bulls, because we are making up our minds here right now. Check this out. So we had sellers right here, right, that basically rejected that. We saw like a dead cat bounce. We saw a lot of strength here to the downside, pushing price right on through that 1820 mark, and now retesting that same area. So the question is, will that hold as a seller's sort of stronghold? It also lines up from our top to the bottom here to the 38.2. So we're seeing, like I said, a lot of strength on the gold market, but retesting a key spot. And so this is going to be a moment for bears to make a decision, either to yield to the bulls if they break through this level, or if they hold it, we could see a retest right on back down to the bottom here. So either ways, it is a very pivotal moment here for the gold market, whether you are a bull or a bear. If you're a bull, let's talk about this. Let's say that price does rally and breaks through this level. I think it's a pretty clean shot up to the 61.8 retracement, which moves us up to 1850. Okay, so that is my opinion there on gold. Either way, I wouldn't bet on this thing to the short side, because I generally don't like to short gold. It is a deflationary object in general, right? It goes up historically over time. So anything that goes up historically, I'm very hesitant to short, similar to the stock market, right? I'm not going to jump to short side conclusions unless it has a really good reason. And that might be, the reason it might be if we see strength resume on the dollar. But even still, if the dollar is strong, I'd rather be shorting other currencies rather than shorting gold. So that is my take on it. But for the bulls out there, again, watch for a break here of this level. There may be opportunities to see higher prices up to that 61.8 retracement, up to 1850. Again, going to depend on how we react at this level. But for me, I have no trades on this right now. Biggest thing I would say is that, maybe a trade setup like this, break and retest, could be interesting. But for the most part, I am personally on the sidelines with this one, and with dollar strength right now, a little bit hesitant on gold itself. Let's jump back over to DXY just for a second. Let me pull up DXY. So the dollar is so strong today. So you've got 2 beautiful strong green candles there off of the lows, and it does seem like those are holding their gains for now. again, definitely one that is on my radar would be to watch the dollar across the board. Is there any other ones? We could talk about the AUD USD, of course. We talked about New Zealand dollar, but let's talk about AUD USD, which is rejecting this spot here. We're seeing a little bit of sell pressure come in at the 0.76 mark. Could be a move back down here to the lows. We will see how that plays out, but again, the other scenario here with this one would be if we see the strength continue overall this week, watch for a break, watch for a retest. That could be a scenario as well. Again, for me, I am bullish on the Aussie, but I'm a little bit hesitant. They still are dealing with lockdowns. They're sort of unfortunately dealing with that situation with the pandemic and everything, sort of resurfacing, rekindling over there in Australia. That's sort of a negative catalyst for the Aussie. So I am paused on my bullishness for the Aussie right now. I do like the New Zealand against things like the Swiss franc, for example, NZD, CHF. Maybe there's some opportunities here this week on a retest. You have opportunities, in my opinion, for pullbacks here on things like the New Zealand crosses. Again, I'm bullish on the New Zealand off of their news. One level that may be interesting to me would be 0.65. In fact, that looks really interesting to the point that I may even set an alert here just in case I want to take a trade there. I will just create that really quick. There we go. So if price comes down to that, I'll reconsider it. But do love all the strength there on the New Zealand dollar this week and think that it may have room to continue higher. But I'm going to wait for a retest if I am going to get long myself. So there you go. I think could even see prices move up there on New Zealand Swiss to something like 0.656. I like that for potential targets on that move, but it does seem like we may see a little bit of a pullback on the NZD crosses. But I'm very much looking for setups there. So happy birthday, says 99. That's a cool nickname. Happy birthday to you. Thanks for being here on your birthday. Cool to have you in the chat. Gold is about to fall. We are testing resistance. We'll see how it holds or doesn't. That's again, the big topic for gold is, are we going to hold that 38.2 or are we going to break out? I think watching that today will be a big clue as to where we head for the rest of the week, because again, markets are picking back up on momentum. Things are going back to normal. We had, like I said, the bank holiday yesterday with the 4th of July here in the United States, but things are back in the full swing. So should be an interesting week. Guys, with that, I am going to wrap up. Before I go, I do want to say, if you want to see the trades that are being taken by our analysts, myself included, Frank and Patrick, all three of us are sharing our trades inside of the group with full details and analysis. Like I said, Frank caught the breakout on gold today, so congrats to Frank there, and congrats to the other members who maybe caught some of that as well. With that said, I do want to also remind you that if you join the group, we do live coaching webinars. So if you have more specific questions in a smaller group setting, Joe Bareka, he's one of our analysts as well. He is sharing tips and tricks and educational stuff inside of the private Discord as well. He does Zoom calls with members quite often. So again, that's something that you get inside of our private group. We also have a weekly forecast report, which is a detailed research thing that we do as a team here. There's a full staff that makes everything that we do here possible, from the YouTube to the private group to the website. All of that stuff requires an entire team. So if you enjoy this stuff, even if you don't join any of our premium services, at least subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would help quite a bit, and leave a like. It does help to just grow what we're doing here, which is free trading content as much as possible. That is for people who are looking to learn. So come back and join us in the future. Again, subscribe to the channel here, click post notifications on so that you can come back and watch more live streams and more market ideas. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for being here. Happy Tuesday to you, and I will see you back in the next one.
I know you were expecting Nick, but my name's Julie and I do the real work around here. I wanted to take a second to thank you guys for watching the show and tell you more about some free content that we offer. One of the things that we offer is a free email newsletter. So if you click the link down below, you can sign up for free market analysis, trading tips, and exclusive offers. Every once in a while, someone here at A1 Trading takes a crazy trade and you'll be the first one to know about it. See you guys next time.